What's going on, people?
Hello.
Hey, it's us again.
That's it.
Us is We're the Williams.
Yes.
This is my wonderful wife, Ramona. And my name is Wilbert. And we're
So
here.
governmental.
Huh?
So governmental. Wilbur.
Hey, that's true. I didn't give you a full name. But we're here with another edition of Love Unscripted. We'd like to say thank you once again for welcoming us into your home, into your day, into your afternoon,
To your phone.
to your phone, and to your time. Thank you for taking that. Thank you for taking the time to hear our perspective on certain things that we consider are important in a covenant marriage.
Nice intro, babe.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Good job.
All right. You ready for tonight's topic?
I am.
Tonight's topic is you never know who's watching. So that goes into a whole perspective of what takes place when you're apart from your spouse. Yeah, you never know who's watching.
True.
Yeah, for the husbands, how are you conducting yourselves when you're away from your wife? Are you minding your manners? Are
your marital manners?
Your marital manners? Very good. Or are you being that model man that you've been called to be by design? When you're married, your perspectives changes. You should not. Yep, I'm saying you should not.
Go for it.
You should not act as though you're still single when you're apart from your spouse, because you're not.
Because you're not.
You're not. Your motives shouldn't be single. Your actions should be single or single-minded.
Yeah.
And I think that, you should be a reflection of your spouse. You should always keep in mind, if my spouse was here, would I be doing this?
Would I be doing this?
If my spouse was here, would I be saying this?
Would I be saying this?
If my spouse was here, would I be observing this?
Observing this.
You probably wouldn't.
No.
And if you wouldn't, you probably shouldn't.
I feel you on that one. We give you one for that. Yes. If you wouldn't, you probably shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a really, really good way to look at it. Because sometimes, people get caught up in a moment. Let's say if you happen to have single friends and you're married and you guys go out and you hang out, guys, ladies, both sexes. So you go and you're hanging out with your friends who might not be married. Of course, they probably will do things that single people do and act ways that single people act, say things that single people say.
Yes.
But if your spouse was sitting next to you, would you be doing those same things? Because at the end of the day, I think a lot of it has to do with respect and honor. Honoring your spouse, honoring your covenant, respecting that you are with this person and you're a representation of them, regardless if they are in your presence or out of your presence.
That's right. That doesn't mean you're boring around your single friends. You can still have fun without making a pass at a passing young lady. I'm just being real. You can have fun without saying something or what is it called? What is it called when you whistle at a young lady?
Gawking?
Cat call?
Cat. Ooh, go old school. Yes. Cat call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't be influenced by your friends. When you said I do, that's it.
Yeah, and that means to everything that comes with a marriage,
The respect, the honor, even when you're apart. Because your friends, trust me, they're watching you when you don't think they are. Knowing that you're married, they're paying attention to your actions. And in the back of their minds, they're probably saying, nah, he ain't happy. Nah, he probably out here just doing stuff on the slide. Don't tell nobody. You are setting yourself up to be looked at as a no good dirty down, low dog, dirty husband. And you don't want to be that. You want to maintain that respectful image. Even when you're apart, honor your spouse. When somebody sees you, you know what? Here's the thing. When a woman sees you, they should say, I want a husband like that woman has husband. That's what they should say. They should want a husband like that woman's husband. And if they don't, then you know what? You're probably out of line.
So let me ask you this, babe. What do you think about married couples married couples having single friends and hanging out with those single friends? Do you think there should be parameters? Do you like, what are those guidelines? And let me say this before I finish that statement, because one of the things that we definitely talked about in one of our earlier videos was having boundaries.
Yes.
There, and we learned that in counseling. Let me go ahead and put my plug in for counseling. We are definitely co-signers on counseling. It's important for a marriage. And so we never thought about boundaries and this is when, I think we had that counseling session. It was premarital counseling at that point.
Right.
And we had a counseling session about boundaries. And we hadn't thought about that as a couple. Like, we're good people. We're going to be good to each other. But you still have to set those boundaries. Like, what is going to be acceptable in our marriage? Do we hang out with our single friends, going to certain places? Is that acceptable? Is that a boundary that we don't want to cross? And so what we ended up doing, I can share with you, we had to, separate from each other, write down a list of what we believe should be those boundaries. What boundaries will you not cross? And let me tell you, sometimes you don't even know that your spouse may have a boundary or a certain type of issue with certain things until it's brought up into the forefront. And so when you don't set those expectations and boundaries, especially when we're talking about going out and being social in settings with single friends, there is that the opportunity for you to do things that you might not, maybe you haven't thought about it. Like, oh, this is okay. I'm with my friends. It's harmless. But what would like my husband was saying, what would your spouse say if they were sitting there next to you? So,
whoa, that should lead into something I want my wife to tell you guys about. An experience that we witnessed a few days ago.
At the restaurant?
At the restaurant.
Yeah, let me tell you. So we were sitting there having our food and having our nice little adult beverage. Margarita's our thing. That's our drink. Anyway. And so we were right next to what almost appeared to be a couple. When we walked up, you could think, oh, these people, this lady and this man is a couple.
Right.
However, because the conversation was so loud, we could pretty much hear everything that was being said. And the lady informed the guy from A to Z, from birth to current, about her life. And insert that she has a husband.
Oh, yeah.
And there was so much attention being given to this man while they were sitting there talking, who was clearly not her husband. And there were clear boundaries that were being crossed. And I just had this feeling, I'm thinking the whole time, like, man, I feel that if her husband was there, he would have felt disrespected.
I felt bad for her husband, even though he wasn't there.
Absolutely.
I felt bad for him.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe to her it felt harmless, but we have to consider, we have to really sometimes draw a line and say, how would this affect my spouse if they saw, what if they heard about it secondhand? What if someone else, what if I happened to know, or my husband happened to know this lady's husband, co-worker or whatever, and here she is having this conversation. Not to say, to go back and tell her, because sometimes your other people's business is not your business.
Other people's business is not your business.
But, just to know that was something that was witnessed. And it's not all about what other people think, because I do believe, we believe your relationship is your relationship. But, I think there's a fine line that you end up crossing. And it really makes you think, like, am I truly honoring my spouse when I am out in the public? Of course, at home, but also in the public. And you know what? That honestly doesn't have to just be when you're with single friends. It could also be when you are with married friends. Are you honoring them? Is there any dishonor that is happening? Because when you get put together,
come on,
by God, that's something that also, are you honoring God? Hello, hello, are you honoring God?
Yeah, I believe honoring your spouse is honoring God.
Yeah.
Honoring the one that God placed you with is honoring God. He gets the glory for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut in. Go ahead, baby.
No. I think that's good. And so I think some of the things that we did early on, like I said, we created a list, and I think this is helpful for anybody, any couple, to engage in that extra dialogue that it's work. It's work dialogue,
right.
That extra dialogue that helps you to determine, okay, even if that's the only thing you focus on, because there can be boundaries with so many things, we realize, right? Boundaries with family, boundaries with work time, boundaries of who is it okay to talk to on the phone, who is it not okay. It can be boundaries, whatever. And guess what? You set the boundaries. Like, you set the foundation for whatever your boundaries are. I talked too much and forgot my statement, so babe, you want to jump in?
Sure. So here's the thing. People give off vibes, right? People give off signals. And that whole situation that we witnessed at the restaurant, they were clearly giving the signals of they were vibing each other.
Yeah.
Clearly the lady had already told him that she was married. Clearly the guy expressed to her that he was single. Clearly we could hear their conversation, because clearly they were talking loud enough to where, and they were close enough to where we could hear them.
Yeah.
Now, the funny thing is, she did not ward him off with don't get too close to me vibe. This was their closeness. And they were leaning in. And he was clearly making a pass. However, she left by herself. But that whole time, there was something going on there. And it was obvious. To me, that is disrespectful.
Yeah.
That is disrespectful. Two places, two reasons. The wife was being disrespectful to her covenant, and the guy was being disrespectful after the lady said she had a husband. He should have clearly turned that conversation, or she should have clearly waved him off. But I didn't see either one of those happen.
No, they didn't.
And so, you never know who's watching.
Yeah.
You never know who's paying attention. So when you're away from your spouse, conduct yourself as a man who is married. Conduct yourself as a woman who is married. Don't put yourself out there in a single-minded fashion or single-minded vibes just to make you feel like you're enjoying yourself. As my wife says, there's boundaries. And don't cross that line even when you're away from your spouse. Just because they don't see you, don't mean it's right.
Yeah. So thanks for filling in the gap. So I was just wrapping up the thought of, the things that you can do in order to, because sometimes in marriage, you have to ward off those things before they happen.
Yes,
you
that's
know,
good.
You have to take a stance in identifying certain things before they happen. There are a lot of times when things are going to happen and you weren't able to hit it off, cut it off. But the things that you are able to do, you hearing this, if you have identified boundaries, with your spouse, and if maybe there are boundaries that you've crossed and it never came up, or it came up as an argument. guess what? It doesn't have to come up in the argument.
Mm.
It can literally come up as you are, hey, you know what? I like what they said in that video. It makes sense.
Yes.
I mean, we think it makes sense. It makes sense. Hey, let's take 20, 30 minutes. I think your marriage is worth 20 or 30 minutes. And let's sit down and let's look at boundaries. Let's just look at the social boundary. What does it look like when we are out? List those things and then have a conversation around it. And be sure to take out the emotion because, you know, we were all at one point single. We did not come into this world married. So we were all at one point single. You have your single experiences over here for one spouse and single experience over here for the other. And we also have had different experiences knowing and experiencing marriages, you know, that we got a chance to witness. And so you take all of that into account and like, man, you have differences. There are going to be differences, but once you sit down, she makes her list out. He makes his list out and have an opportunity to talk and say, okay, if for the things at least that you're able to agree on, because you could disagree on some things, we're going to list out all the things that we agree on. And if it comes to a point where, okay, this is too much, we can just agree on these things, put it to the side, come back to it again. Okay, let's come with a clear mind. Let's talk about the rest of these things that are clear that we need to talk about and agree upon. So I think those are just some actionable steps because that social scene can be something
absolutely
else.
Now, think about it in this way. You're no longer two, but you're one. So when you think about those boundaries and those social scenes can start from Sunday, church, Monday, work, Tuesday.
Babe, that's good because I didn't even think about all that. Yes, not just going out to, you know, having
shopping,
dinner.
Going around, moving throughout the city, your daily routines. Wednesday, you know, your whereabouts. Thursday, you know, your movements when it requires you to get yourself ready for the last day and you're finishing off the week. You know, how are you conducting yourself? Church,
at work,
at work, home, roundabouts. You know,
especially the
roundabouts. Yes, my wife, she's getting me off track here.
Sorry, babe.
But absolutely, you know, you're in your roundabouts. You're capping off your week. You know, what are you doing on Friday? You know, how's your mindset? You know, where you are when it comes to your spouse. Are you keeping it together? Is your mind still on being two, or is it being one? Where's your mind? Because it should be just on one. Being one.
One.
Don't let the weekend make you start thinking two.
Come on, babe.
Because it ain't like that. It's still one. It's one from Sunday to Sunday.
I hope y'all getting this. I am over here like I'm in church listening. How about that? Like I am getting a word that, you know, and it's so, man, when you focus on your marriage, it's just like, you know, if you want to lose weight, how do you lose weight? You continue to eat, do the things that aren't that won't allow you to? Absolutely not. Do you neglect going to the gym? Absolutely not. Do you neglect drinking the water that you need to? No. You focus in, you make some decisions, you become disciplined, you know, you become intentional, and then you see the fruit of your work. It's the same
I love that.
thing with marriage.
Yes.
Like my husband is saying, like you focus in on those areas and say, how am I? What adjustments do I need to make?
Right.
You know, I want to be able to like feel when I am wherever I am and I'm with or without my husband, feel that he is being honored.
Yes.
You know, I can hold my head up and say, yep, I am his woman, and he can be proud because I know that I have honored him.
Absolutely.
You know, I think that's better than $1 million, honestly.
You know, I think one thing my wife just said was huge. when you discipline yourself in that way, and you conduct yourself to honor your spouse when you are separate from your spouse and they're not in your presence, that becomes your character. That becomes how you go about your week, how you go about your daily activities. You go about it as an honorable spouse, a respectable spouse, and it's huge because the fruits of it are amazing. Mm-hmm. The fruit of you allowing yourself to be conditioned by the fact that you are no longer two, but you're one. Allow yourself to be conditioned to that, and you will reap the fruits of the covenant that God has placed you two in. You will reap it. Trust me. Trust me.
Trust me.
You never know who's watching. Yeah. But always know that he's watching.
That's beautiful, babe. So we just speak.
Yes.
Honor and respect in your marriage.
Yes.
And may the fruit of you honoring your spouse and your covenant be reciprocated to you. So when you honor your spouse, honor your covenant, honor your God, you're also honoring yourself. And let that be an overflow into everything else that happens in your life. And I guarantee you, when you feel a sense, when you put in your mind that I want to honor my spouse, even the way you move throughout the day, the way that you think about, the way that you say, how you do things for them, it's going to change. It's going to be very, very impactful. Yes. So we speak honor and respect in your marriage and flourishing.
Absolutely. Honor your spouse with your words. Honor your spouse with your actions. Honor your spouse with how you represent them when they're not with you.
Yeah.
And we say hope to you all. Blessings to you all. You're no longer two, but you're one.
Silly. Love you, babe.
Love you too.
All right, guys, that is it.
Peace out.
Peace out.
Take care, guys. Till the next time.
Bye-bye.